Hello, Y10, and welcome to your next geography lesson. Today we're talking about resources, continuing, specifically today, water as a resource across the UK. Now, for the last two lessons, you've been learning about food in the UK. So a quick little do now, just a few minutes to think about these two questions. Number one, what is an agribusiness? And number two, state three characteristics of an agribusiness. Characteristic, remember, is something about what it does, what it's like, how it works, something about it, something that makes it an agribusiness. So get cracking with that, get your brains working, do that from memory, please, and we'll go through some answers on the next slide. Pause the video now. Okay, so an agribusiness is an intensive farming method aimed at maximizing the amount of food produced, also known as the yield. Its characteristics are things like it has high levels of investment, it uses modern methods of technology, it uses lots of chemicals and employs very few workers. All of these things aimed at meeting the aim of the definition, maximizing the amount of food produced and therefore the profit. This is a business after all. It's running to make money. And this was seen as one way of reducing the burden on imports. We don't need to import as much food as a country, and we're able to produce more ourselves to be sustainable. Okay, with that in mind, let's move on to look at water. So copy the title, please. Provision of water in the UK. Have a look through the objectives, get yourself sorted with that. It should just take 30 seconds. Pause the video now. Okay, to begin with, could you watch this video? And you've got 4 questions to answer in full sentences. So for example, for question 1, how much of the southeast region's water comes from underground aquifers? You're going to say how much, and then you're going to write this much of the southeast region's water comes from underground aquifers, full stop. So make sure they are full sentences to make it clear for you in the future and be able to revise from these statements. Pause the video now and get watching that other video. So 60% of the region's water comes from underground aquifers. Abstraction is the removal of water from the aquifers, which is then pumped into a facility to produce drinking water. Water is becoming a precious resource because the population is rising, so there's an increasing demand for the water, and winters are getting drier, which is when the aquifers would have been replenished. And finally, water is heavy to transport and it requires a lot of energy to do so. So some interesting points there, already talking about the core point of today, which is water, whether we have enough, and how we can meet the challenge of providing water to everyone in this country. So good start, let's move on. So some key terms we're going to be talking about today. I'd like you to write them all out, write the word means, and then write the definition. So grey water means, and then work out what the answer is. Give it a go, and we'll go through the answers on the next slide. So pause the video, 5 minutes to do that, get writing. Okay, so here are your answers. Grey water means wastewater from people's homes. This can be reused, for example. It's a way of saving water use. Supply is how much water we're able to provide, the water supply. Water surplus means when supply exceeds demand, demand meaning how much water we want to use. So water surplus simply is when we don't have enough water for the amount we actually need. Water deficit is when demand exceeds supply. And finally, water stress, when the annual demand is more than 80% of the available supply. So can you check those for me, make any corrections you need to, and then we'll move on. Pause now. Okay, so let's answer this question. Do we have enough water in the UK? You've got 2 maps on the left with questions A and B, and the map on the right with question C. So first of all, look at the the population density map on the left. Look at the key and answer the question, which areas have the highest population density? Then move on to B, describe the pattern of rainfall across the UK. There should be a very clear pattern when you look at it using compass directions. So write about that. Then have a think, are they the same areas? What do you think this means for water supply? And then move on to C, looking at the idea of water stress. You've got the definition you've just written down a minute ago, so double check, remind yourself of that. And then use all of these maps to explain why the southeast has serious water stress. And it links back to the other 2 maps. So put all that together and link it to the idea of water stress. That should take you 10 minutes at most, so get cracking with that. And I'll show you the answers in just a second. Pause the video now. Okay, so some answers. The highest population densities. Well, there's quite a few different points you may have made. The largest area probably being in the southeast, but also in the Midlands. but you've got London in the southeast is the largest area, including the surrounding areas. You've also got a longer, more linear line along the coast of the southeast as well. Then you've got the Midlands, that large blob with Sheffield, Manchester, Liverpool, all of that. There's a larger area in South Wales, which is Cardiff and Swansea. And in Scotland, you've got that small little band of Glasgow and then Edinburgh as well. So make sure you've got those main points down, and then we'll get on to population, not population density, sorry, you've just done that, water supply. So rainfall, highest in the northwest and the west, and least in the east or the southeast. There's your simple, basic pattern there. You may have also added, and you can add this if you haven't, that it's highest in the mountainous areas. If you should have a good knowledge of UK physical geography, it's highest in the mountainous areas. For example, the Grampians up in the northwest there of Scotland, and the Cambrian Mountains in the north of Wales. So add any points there you've missed, and we'll move on to the final question. The southeast has serious water stress because it has moderate levels of rainfall and a high population density, especially around London. It also has a lack of main storage reservoirs to store water for when it's needed. So add all those things together, and we've got ourselves serious water stress in the southeast, including around Woking and including around the areas where you live. You might not realise that all the time, but actually water is a big issue around it. We are used to turning taps on and them running and it not being a problem. However, in the future, you never know if things continue as they are, with global climate changing and the UK becoming certainly drier at some periods. If there's large periods of drought, we could actually see a time in the next 100 years or so where taps are turned on and nothing comes out. That is a possibility. Not guaranteed by a long way, but it is a possibility. Okay, I'd just like you to do a bit of reading here. Have a little read through this textbook section. Now, the first page, a lot of that is kind of things that we've already talked about. And then we move to the right-hand page is what we're about to move on to, the idea of water transfer. So get reading on that left page, and we'll move on to the other page in just a second. Pause the video and get reading now. Okay, so copy this subtitle. What is water transfer and why is it needed? So water transfer schemes are used to match water supply with demand by moving water from an area with water surplus to another with water deficit. The Kielder scheme, which is one of the most well-known reservoirs and water transfer schemes in the country, pumps water to Newcastle in the east, but the government is thinking about extending this across the whole country, even as far as London. You can see all of the red arrows on the map there. These are suggested water transfer schemes linking the north all the way to the south, and you can see the Kielder line there running through Newark all the way down to London. At the moment, that doesn't exist, but it's a potential, it's a possibility. The main reason it isn't happening, though, is cost. It's incredibly expensive, very energy intensive to move water across that level of distance. You've got to keep pumping it with pressurized pipes. That's a lot of money to do. So not happened yet, but certainly something the government are considering. So you should be copying all that down. If you haven't already, pause now and get that done. Okay, just to zoom in a little bit here and show you the Kielder reservoir again. You've got the Kielder water up in the top left there. You've also got Derwent, another fairly large reservoir in the south of this image. And you can see the River Tyne and the fact that this water is being trapped in these reservoirs, and then it's being pumped all the way down into Newcastle. And you can see the figures here, areas around Kielder with 1,702 millimetres of rain a year, and not that many people, all the way down to Newcastle with a high population density, but only 644 millimetres of rain a year. So once again, that point that we're moving from areas of low population density but high rainfall to areas of high population density but low rainfall. Okay, a little bit more about Kielder. Watch the video and answer the questions in full sentences. This is the final task of the day, so I'll be going through the answers and that'll be it. So get going, pause the video now. Okay, so some answers. Kielder holds 200 billion litres of water. Pretty amazing. Cowgreen Reservoir on the River Tees, but it was not enough to supply as the population grew, so Kielder was designed to support this. It was opened in 1982, completed 6 to 7 years later. It's described as the most water secure area of the UK because it's the only area with a surplus of usable water. And the additional benefits are the dam has the biggest turbine in Europe to capture power, energy, enough to support a population of 11,000 people. So a renewable energy supply there as well. We're going to be moving on to energy very soon. So that's the end of this lesson. Hopefully you understand now, and you can tell me the areas of the UK where we have a water stress and where we don't, where supply and demand are different, plus also one way of managing that, which is the transfer of water from areas of water surplus to areas of water demand or high demand water stress. So there we go. Thank you very much. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.